We are currently living in the most hyper-connected, just digitally saturated era in human history. So why is it that, lacking social connection right now carries the exact same physical health risks as smoking up to 15 cigarettes every single day?
I mean, it's really the defining paradox of our time. We've engineered this world where communication is instantaneous, yet we are facing this just unprecedented epidemic of isolation that is, well, it's quite literally destroying our physiological health.
Yeah. And welcome to this deep dive. Our mission today is to seek answers for you to a pretty profound overarching question, which is how can regenerative communities support you through the loneliness crisis? And, are they actually capable of solving it?
Right, which is a massive question to tackle.
It is. And to figure this out, we are digging into a truly eclectic stack of sources today. We've got official health advisories from the U.S. Surgeon General and the World Health Organization. We're looking at academic papers on urbanism, some urban planning blogs.
An architecture student's highly detailed Reddit thesis, which was fascinating.
Yes, that was a wild read. And we're also pulling from the open source manifestos of a network called EcoHubs.
It's a really fascinating mix of medical data, architectural theory, and sociological blueprints. But, they all sort of converge on one undeniable truth.
Which is that the physical and social spaces we inhabit are just fundamentally failing us.
Exactly.
Okay, let's unpack this, because before we can talk about redesigning our world to cure this crisis, we really have to understand mechanics of the disease itself.
Right. We have to look at the baseline.
Exactly. We hear the word loneliness tossed around as this, temporary, sad emotion, but the data you found elevates this to a full-blown public health emergency, right?
Yeah, absolutely. When we look at the reports from the U.S. Surgeon General, Dr. Vivek Murthy, and the WHO Commission on Social Connection, they aren't talking about loneliness as just a fleeting feeling of sadness.
Right.
They are classifying it as a severe chronic physiological threat. Because when you are chronically isolated, your body actually interprets that as a survival threat.
Like a literal physical danger.
Yes. It elevates your cortisol, it increases inflammation, and it just breaks down your biological resilience over time. That is exactly how the WHO equates the physical damage of isolation to a pack-a-day smoking habit.
I mean, that 15 cigarettes a day statistic is absolutely terrifying.
It really is.
And it's not just affecting one specific demographic, is it?
No, it's completely systemic. However, the data shows that youth are being hit with a particularly devastating force right now. 60% of young adults are reporting negative effects on their well-being due to loneliness.
Wow.
And one of the studies in our stack highlighted Generation Z specifically, noting that an astonishing 79% report feelings of isolation.
That is just, 79%. The generation that has never known a world without smartphones and constant digital connectivity is the most isolated.
Exactly. And this isolation has immediate real-world fallout. The WHO data shows that teenagers who experience chronic loneliness are 22% more likely to get lower grades or fail to achieve basic qualifications.
Because they're just biologically stressed all the time.
Yeah, right. But if you look at the other end of the generational spectrum, the crisis is just as severe. 1 in 4 older adults experiences social isolation.
Which has to have massive health impacts.
Oh, huge. It directly correlates to massive spikes in the risk of heart disease, stroke, and dementia.
Okay, so let's talk about where we used to find connection. We all know what a third place is, right? Sociologist Ray Oldenburg coined the term years ago.
Right. The first place is home, the second is work or school.
Exactly. And those third places are the neutral public gathering spots. The local cafés, public parks, neighborhood libraries, places where social status doesn't matter, you don't need an invitation, and interactions are completely spontaneous.
The anchors of human community.
Right. So if we know these spaces are the literal anchors, why is modern architecture just systematically hunting them to extinction?
Well, that is exactly what that architecture student's Reddit thesis explores. It's essentially an economic design choice.
Profit over people.
Precisely. Our built spaces are increasingly centered purely on economic output and efficiency rather than a human scale. We've prioritized car-centric suburban sprawl because it just maximizes real estate profit.
And then we zone our cities to separate commerce from residential areas.
Exactly, which inherently kills the walkability required for a third place to even survive.
Add digital substitution into that mix, and the physical spaces don't stand a chance. I mean, the sources noted young adults are spending 7 to 10 hours daily on screens.
Yeah, that stat is wild.
And the Surgeon General's report cited a study showing that people who use social media for 2 hours or more a day are more than twice as likely to report feeling socially isolated.
But here is where the urban planning really backfires. Because when cities try to solve housing crises by rapidly building these massive residential developments, they often inadvertently create hotbeds for severe mental distress.
Oh, this is the Newtown Blues thing from the National Housing Federation source, right, with Tara Giebelade.
Yes. Tara Giebelade discusses this phenomenon called Newtown Blues. It was originally observed in post-war towns that were built practically overnight to house displaced populations.
Just putting up boxes as fast as possible.
And she points to modern examples too, like the rapid development of Camborne in Cambridge. Medical practitioners there started reporting unusually high concentrated levels of anxiety and depression among the early residents.
Wait, really? Even with brand new facilities?
Yeah, they had brand new houses, modern amenities, safe streets, yet the population was deeply distressed.
Right, because they just built physical boxes to put humans in, but completely ignored the invisible social infrastructure.
They severed the existing kinship network.
Right, and they didn't build any neutral ground for new ones to form. So we've designed a society that optimizes for calories but completely removes the vitamins.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Like, we have the housing and the Wi-Fi, the raw calories required to survive, but we've engineered the social nutrients right out of our daily diet. So if simply building standard modern towns is actively making us sick, what is the architectural missing link here? How do we design places that actually make us well?
Well, that paradox is what sparked the movement away from traditional urban planning towards something called regenerative design.
Okay, I hear the word sustainable thrown around constantly in architecture. Is regenerative design just like a rebrand of sustainability?
Not at all. As Owen Barrett highlights in his real estate blog, sustainability and regeneration operate on entirely different baselines.
How so?
Well, sustainable development is ultimately about doing less harm. It's about slowing down the damage, achieving net zero emissions, reducing waste.
Basically just trying to keep the current ecosystem from degrading further.
Exactly. It's essentially just treading water. Regenerative development asks a much more radical question. It asks, what if human presence could actually make an ecosystem better?
Okay, wow. So not just pausing the damage.
Right. It's not about being net zero. It's about being net positive. It's about active healing, rebuilding soil, and designing environments that actively improve the biology of the people living inside them.
Okay, I want to dig into the biological mechanics of that because the academic paper on eco-urbanism from Studio Engelbach absolutely blew my mind. They operate on this maxim, I think it was, health starts at home. Hospitals are for repairs.
Yes, that's their core philosophy.
So how does the physical design of a regenerative neighborhood actually change human biology?
So Studio Engelbach looks at urban design through a whole systems biological lens. A perfect example of this is the human microbiome.
Yeah.
We usually think of our immune systems and gut bacteria as things strictly controlled by our diet or, genetics, but they are heavily shaped by our daily environmental exposures. The paper cites this really fascinating Finnish study that looked at preschools.
Oh, right, where they took those standard, somewhat sterile gravel and concrete playgrounds and literally just brought in nature.
Yeah, they brought in unsealed soil, forest floor vegetation, just natural elements into these typical urban daycares.
And what happened?
Within just a month, 1 month, the children playing in that soil didn't just get dirty. Their microbiome diversity significantly increased, which demonstrably strengthened their immune systems.
That is incredible, just from playing in real dirt.
Exactly. By trying to build perfectly sterile, concrete-sealed cities, we actually removed the biological stressors our immune systems need to learn and function.
So eco-urbanism integrates nature back into the daily human path because it literally improves our biological resilience.
Yes, and that directly mirrors the permaculture principles highlighted in the Common Ground Kauai source.
Right, permaculture, that's built on 3 core ethics, isn't it? Earth care, people care, and fair share.
Exactly. It recognizes that healthy soil equals healthy food equals healthy people. It's one unbroken loop.
And physically, these regenerative neighborhoods look radically different than standard suburban sprawl, right?
Oh, completely different. You see clustered, compact homes that are specifically designed to conserve massive amounts of shared open space.
Instead of everyone having their own little fenced-off turf.
Right. And you see walkable layouts where pedestrians and spontaneous interactions are prioritized over cars. You see shared amenities seamlessly integrated into the neighborhood community gardens, tool libraries, local food production, co-working spaces.
And what I found so compelling about this is that this isn't just some utopian fringe concept for people wanting to, drop out of society. The economic reality is that regenerative housing sees a 10 to 30% premium in home values.
People are actively willing to pay more for it.
Because they're so starved for physical spaces that support connection.
The market demand is undeniably there. People really want the hardware of a connected life.
But here's where it gets really interesting. Let's say a group of people buy into this, right? They build a beautiful regenerative village. They cluster the homes. They build the shared organic gardens, the walkable paths, the whole 9 yards.
Sounds perfect.
But wait, I'm stuck on a massive flaw here. If you take a group of hyper-individualized modern humans and force them into proximity in a green space, doesn't that just breed resentment? Like, if they don't know how to live together, couldn't that forced proximity actually cause more conflict?
You have just identified the exact reason why most of these projects collapse.
Really?
Yes, it's the massive elephant in the room addressed by the EcoHub's manifestos. The physical design of a regenerative community is completely useless without a functional social design. EcoHubs points out a staggering reality: 80 to 90% of intentional communities actually fail.
80 to 90%. If these are groups of highly motivated people who actively want to live together and share the exact same values about sustainability, why is the failure rate higher than most startup businesses?
Because shared values do not equal shared operations.
Oh, that makes sense.
These communities fail because they hyper-focus on the physical elements, permaculture, the solar grids, the housing structures, but they entirely ignore the invisible structures of human behavior.
They just assume everyone will get along because they all like organic farming.
Exactly. They don't have explicit systems for how complex decisions get made, how to equitably divide labor, or, most importantly, how conflict is resolved. Humans are messy.
It's the ultimate hardware versus software problem. You can buy a gorgeous state-of-the-art computer hardware setup, the gardens and the eco-homes, but if it's running on a terrible social operating system, it is going to crash the second you turn it on.
That is exactly how Stefan, the founder of EcoHubs, approached the problem. His personal story is a really fascinating lens into this.
Tell me about him.
Growing up in Germany, he felt profoundly alienated and lonely. And for years, he internalized it, assuming something was just inherently broken within him.
Which is how so many people listening to this probably feel right now.
Right. But eventually, he realized his alienation wasn't a personal failure. It was a completely rational response to a systemic failure.
Right. He realized the modern, hyper-individualized machine is exactly what was making him sick. So he started traveling, embedding himself in nature and alternative communities.
Yeah.
And for the first time, the loneliness lifted.
Yes. He studied alternative education, permaculture, decentralized governance. He wanted to take all these healing concepts and go fix the global system.
But you can't just fix the whole world overnight.
No, he quickly realized the global system is too rigid. It's too massive and entrenched to bend. Institutions often just apply Band-Aids to deep systemic wounds, largely because the economic incentives of the system don't actually allow the wound to heal.
Yeah, you can't ask a system built on isolation to cure isolation.
Exactly. So he shifted his entire philosophy. He stopped asking, how do I fix the global system? And started asking, how do I build a replicable new way of life inside it?
That's a huge perspective shift.
It is. He also recognized the psychological danger of environmentalism without community. The sources note that individuals trying to practice sustainability in isolation often develop severe eco-anxiety and burnout.
Because it's too much for one person to carry.
Right. The environmental work fails because the human boundaries and support systems are ignored.
Which brings us right back to that 90% failure rate. If you can't just throw people into a permaculture farm and expect them to get along, how do we upgrade the social software? Like, how do we build an operating system that actually keeps these regenerative communities alive?
Well, that is the core innovation of EcoHubs. They developed something called RCOS, the Regenerative Community Operating System.
So it's literally a standardized operating system for human beings living together.
Yes. It's an open source manual designed to make the invisible expectations of community living completely explicit. Stefan essentially wrote the guidebook he wished someone had handed him years ago.
That's brilliant. How does it work?
RCOS breaks community architecture down into manageable layers. You have layers governing membership, how resources and local economies are managed, how decisions are made. But the most crucial element is layer 4, which is entirely dedicated to conflict and repair.
Okay, but how does an operating system manage human emotion and conflict? Like, you can't just code a person to not be mad.
No, you can't, but you can fundamentally change the definition of what conflict is. In a standard society, when a major argument breaks out, we view it as a failure of the relationship or the community.
Right. Someone is wrong, someone is right.
Exactly. RCOS dictates that conflict is simply diagnostic information. It's treated like a dashboard warning light indicating that a specific process is broken.
I need a concrete example of how this works in practice. Walk me through how Layer 4 handles a real-world dispute.
Okay, let's look at the pilot program. EcoHubs is currently running at the Fruit Haven community in Ecuador. They are testing RCOS under real-world economic and social constraints right now.
Okay, so a real place.
Yeah. Imagine two members get into a heated dispute because one feels the other isn't pulling their weight in the shared agricultural work. In a standard community, this leads to passive-aggressive behavior, gossip, factions forming, and eventually an explosion that splinters the group.
The classic commune collapse. We've seen it a million times.
Exactly. But under RCOS, the community doesn't attack the character of the individuals. They look at the manual. The conflict is data telling them that the system for tracking and valuing labor is ambiguous.
Oh, wow. So it depersonalizes it completely.
Yes. So they use the explicit governance protocols to propose a change to the labor tracking system. They hold a transparent vote based on the pre-agreed rules of RCOS, update the open source manual, and the tension is resolved structurally rather than emotionally.
I am just thinking about how incredibly useful this applies to a normal office job.
Yeah.
Imagine if an argument in a corporate marketing meeting wasn't viewed as a failure of team chemistry or like a reason to fire someone, but was actually logged as diagnostic data to fix a broken workflow in the company's operations.
It completely removes the personal shame from conflict. It creates real psychological safety. By writing down the things humans usually leave unsaid, RCOS provides a framework for our messiness.
So what does this all mean for you listening? If we tie all these architectural and sociological blueprints back to our main mission today, how does a regenerative community running on this RCOS software actually cure the loneliness epidemic we started with?
It cures it by bringing the scale of daily life back down to a human level. The EcoHubs manifesto argues that the vast majority of our psychological pain comes from living at a scale our brains were never evolutionarily built for.
Right. We work for faceless, multinational corporations. Our food is shipped from across the globe.
And we live in massive apartment buildings next to neighbors whose names we don't even know.
We are a species biologically wired for small tribes, currently trying to navigate a globalized anonymous machine.
Exactly. In an eco-hub or any successfully governed regenerative community, belonging isn't something you have to actively go out and try to achieve after a 10-hour workday.
You don't have to schedule it in on a Thursday night.
No, it's built into the fundamental fabric of your daily routine. You are seen by your neighbors. You are genuinely missed when you don't show up.
It transforms the very nature of labor, too. If your daily work lands directly in the hands of a neighbor sitting across the table from you, rather than disappearing into a corporate spreadsheet, work stops being just a shift you survive.
It becomes inherently meaningful. The manifesto phrases it perfectly. Belonging is built in, not left to chance.
Now, a valid concern people might have here is that this sounds a bit like a cult or an isolationist strategy to just abandon society and hide in the woods.
Right, the immediate image is a closed-off compound. But EcoHubs is highly explicit that this is not a utopian escape. It is a replicable, interconnected network.
How so?
They describe the RCOS standard as forkable borrowing, a software term. Any group of people, anywhere in the world, can take the manual, adapt it to their local culture and climate, and build a community.
So they aren't cutting themselves off.
Not at all. Many members maintain their remote jobs in the global economy while gradually shifting their daily lives toward local community contribution. It's about reducing our fragile dependency on massive global supply chains, not building a wall to keep the world out.
And we can't ignore the macro impact of this. When you scale these regenerative principles, even just integrating them into existing urban environments, the societal benefits are staggering.
The economic data is incredibly clear on this. The Studio Engelbach paper references the Healthy City Generator tool.
Okay.
They ran a pilot study on a major urban landscape project in Bradford, a former industrial mill town in the UK. They found that by integrating these regenerative, nature-based, community-led designs, the city was predicted to see health-related savings of over 70 million euros annually.
70 million euros a year, just by changing the physical and social design of the town.
Because it's a massive chain reaction. Better physical design leads to spontaneous connection. That lowers chronic isolation, which drastically reduces the strain on healthcare systems for depression, heart disease, and dementia.
So to synthesize this entire journey for you listening today, the cure for the loneliness epidemic is not going to be found by downloading another meditation app or reading another self-help book about how to make friends as an adult.
No, it requires fundamentally redesigning our infrastructure. We have to move past the deadly reality of isolation and the tragic loss of our spontaneous third places.
And we have to embrace the physical redesign of our world through ecorbanism, moving beyond simply doing less harm to actively regenerating our soil, our immune systems, and our neighborhoods.
And crucially, we have to adopt the social operating systems, like RCOS, that treat conflict as information. These systems prevent communities from collapsing under the weight of human nature, allowing regenerative spaces to actually survive and bring life back to a human scale.
But the most important takeaway is that you don't have to pack your bags and move to a pilot project in the Ecuadorian jungle to start this process. The shift starts wherever you are.
Exactly. You can actively support the fragile third places that still exist in your community. You can show up to local city council meetings and advocate for regenerative, pedestrian-first design over more car-centric sprawl.
Or, if you were looking to make a bigger leap, you can explore matchmaking platforms like Seeking.community, which are actively connecting people to these aligned networks.
The open-source manuals are completely free to read online. The tools for regeneration are available the exact moment you decide to stop accepting a hyper-individualistic system as the only viable way to exist.
Which brings us to a final lingering question we want to leave you to ponder. We have talked extensively today about RCOS as an operating system for intentional communities. But what if you applied those exact same principles to your life today?
Yeah, think about that.
What if you sat down and made the invisible expectations explicit in your own family? What if you started treating conflict at your workplace purely as diagnostic data to improve a system, rather than a personal failure? If you upgraded your own social software right where you are? How would your personal ecosystem regenerate?